Now pay attention. Don't blink because you'll miss it. This was Joe Biden finally acknowledging those heroes.
And I grieve those brave service members whose lives were lost during the withdrawal.
That was it. Someone on Joe Biden's social media team thought it was a good idea after his speech yesterday to send out this message on X, the Everything app. It will take time to feel the full impact of all that my administration has done, but the seeds we planted will grow and bloom for decades to come. Who thought this was a good idea? I mean, this is so bad and so insipid and so moronic that I think maybe Dr. Jill is behind it. Can't you hear this in her voice? It'll take time to feel the full impact of all that my administration has done. That's what she sounds like. She always sounds like a kindergarten teacher. She always sounds with that sing-songy sort of little girl voice that doesn't quite fit a woman of her age. So this is somebody on the social media comms team, if there is anybody left over there. I don't know, maybe they had Grok do this and they didn't realize it was a parody. Somebody over there decided, listen, people think that he was a lousy president, so maybe we should sort of, frame everything in such a way that you may not appreciate Biden today, but just wait. Years from now, you'll appreciate him, just like we all appreciate Jimmy Carter and that great presidency, right? Right? No? Oh, well, I read somewhere in a textbook. I'm sorry, I'm only 23 years old, and I work on a social media team for a president who's about to... All right, fine. The seeds we planted will grow and bloom for decades to come. Really? Well, there was one veteran of the United States Marine Corps who wanted to respond to President Biden's social media post, but it wasn't just any veteran of the United States Marine Corps. This is Tyler Vargas-Andrews. Tyler Vargas-Andrews was at Abbey Gate on that fateful day in August of 2021. He was ordered to be there by his commander-in-chief, Joe Biden, to provide extra security for the forces who were desperately fleeing the nation of Afghanistan. They had to be at that airport, of course, because it was Commander-in-Chief Joe Biden's bright idea, along with the great generals and admirals that he put in place at the Pentagon, to shut down the Bagram military airfield that they had constructed over the last 2 decades with perfect security forces in place to make sure that anyone there would have to go through the military before they wreaked any havoc. No. They decided to shut that down early, hand over all of the military equipment and ammunition and planes and helicopters and tanks to our enemy, the Taliban. And they decided in the final days that they could use the civilian airport without any kind of military protections to get the last remaining people out of the country. And well, we know how that worked out. So then, at the last second, Commander-in-Chief Joe Biden had to tell some planes to circle back in midair and bring back a couple thousand troops to secure that airport. But they didn't really have the orders to secure the airport. They relied on the Taliban, the terrorists who cooperated with al-Qaeda in the September 11th attacks, the people we were there in the first place to get out of power. Yeah, we relied on the Taliban to provide security at the airport. And somehow, shockingly, a suicide bomber terrorist got past the crack Taliban security forces. And then he blew himself up. He blew himself up along with a multiple number of American servicemen. 13 died, as we know. But that brings us back to Tyler, because Tyler did not perish in that suicide bombing attack. He lost a couple limbs. His life will never be the same. He lost his brothers and sisters that he served with. And Joe Biden said it'll take time to feel the full impact of all that his administration has done. You don't know how good you got it. You have no idea the fabulous things that Joe Biden has done. It's going to take some time until you really recognize it. But the seeds we planted will grow and bloom for decades to come. Well, Tyler had a message for his commander-in-chief. I and so many others felt it over 3 years ago, President Biden. He sure did. Joe Biden showed up at Dover Air Base to oversee, as commander-in-chief, the dignified transfer of the remains of those 13 servicemen, those flag-draped caskets coming from Afghanistan, in his first year as president of the United States. And famously, during that ceremony, he had to check his watch a couple of times because he had somewhere better to be, I suppose. During every single one of his State of the Union addresses, he took no time to acknowledge the families of those that were lost at Abbey Gate, those Gold Star families. At no point did he turn up to the gallery and show the parents or spouses of some of those brave Marines or soldiers who died that day. He didn't have time for that either. He never mentioned them until this week, on his way out the door, in his final address at the Pentagon, as he did a victory lap for his military and national security achievements, Joe Biden finally paused to honor those who had died at his command because of his feckless, irresponsible, and incompetent leadership as commander-in-chief of our armed forces. Now, pay attention. Don't blink, because you'll miss it. This was Joe Biden finally acknowledging those heroes.
And I grieve those brave service members whose lives were lost during the withdrawal.
That was it. That was it. Did you catch it? Now, once again, he does sound like a salesman with his mouth full of samples. He can't even pause, slow down, and let the moment sit there for a second. He has to plow through his teleprompted speech so he can get to his next point, because, God, he's got somewhere to go again. I'm shocked he didn't check his watch in the middle of it. Let's listen to it again. Let's listen to this poignant. I've been told that this guy is the counselor in chief. This guy, he's going to be the guy to give somebody a hug when they're grieving because he's so empathetic. Remember, empathy is on the ballot. I'm sorry, for everybody who thought that Joe Biden's final week in office was going to be a moment where we all walk away and say, you know what, just let him go away and go into the sunset. We're going to focus on that. No, I'm not letting this go. This guy has been a disaster for this country. And real people have been affected by this. Very real people, no more so than the Gold Star families who lost their loved ones because of him. And now with the Pentagon, as he's making his final address and acting like he was a success, as he leaves the military in a shambles with no recruitment, and the black mark on his record that no one got fired over this Afghanistan pullout. And this is the moment where he acknowledges these brave heroes in uniform.
And I grieve those brave service members whose lives were lost during the withdrawal.
That's it. That's all he had. That's all he could muster. Well, they deserve a lot better than that. And we deserve a lot better than that. And finally, just a couple of days from now, we're going to get a lot better than that. But I tell you something. The book is not closed on Joe Biden. He's going to try to skulk away. He's going to try to disappear. But we're not going to let him, and we're not going to forget. The only way we can achieve greatness in this country is if we come to terms with the people who have helped ruin this country in many respects. It's our responsibility. It's our duty to remind you exactly who this man is and the people around him, who they are, because they're not going away. Oh, they'll be back. In fact, some of them are going to stick around and try to undermine Mr. President Trump 47.